'Twas the night before impeachment, but there's definitely a sound. I hear Donald Trump's lawyers rattling around. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Joe the Lawyer. I'm your host, Joe Pometto, a practicing criminal defense attorney in Pittsburgh, PA. Here on this channel, I cover legal news, do legal analysis, and look at other news. I try to put it through a legal and independent and objective filter, though I can say I'm not perfect. My opinions may come through here or there. Today, we are going to take a look at a video. At an article titled Trump Impeachment Lawyer Says He Will Play Videos of Democrats Using Inflammatory Rhetoric During BLM Protests at the Trial. So I just got word of this story and I wanted to drop my 2 cents on it. Before we get into my analysis, some of you just came here for the same time sip. Yes, it's my little starting tip. It gets things going, gets the blood rushing, and it tastes better when we sip together. So raise your cup, your glass in the air. I don't know. I got some weird drink that I bought at Fresh Time, the grocery store. It was the first time I'd ever been there. Sip with me. It tastes better when we sip together. Cheers. Pretty thirsty tonight. Okay, Trump's impeachment lawyer says he will highlight Democratic lawmakers' rhetoric during the trial. The trial starts tomorrow, I believe, at 10 a.m. Bruce Castor alleged he had footage of Democrats using inflammatory rhetoric during BLM protests. And remember, I already did a video where we talked about Bruce Castor as Trump's impeachment defense attorney. He will argue that Trump was using his First Amendment right to question the result of the election. An interesting argument, but one I believe we all saw coming. Former President Donald Trump's lead impeachment lawyer said Friday he will be using video footage of Democratic lawmakers using inflammatory rhetoric during the Black Lives Matter movement to strengthen his argument during next week's Senate trial. This is going to be an interesting trial. Let's just say that. The House voted last month to charge Trump with 1 count of inciting the deadly Capitol insurrection on January 6 in actions that included a speech he gave that morning to a crowd of supporters gathered for a Save America rally. It is expected that the video of Trump's speech will be included in the trial alongside other footage of rioters breaking into the Capitol building. I wonder what other evidence they're going to bring in besides the speech and the riot that day at the Capitol. They may be using his tweets. They may be using Donald Trump's tweets or even prior statements. It'd be interesting to see how far back they go in order to win this case as far as on the Democrats' side. Trump's firing off tweets. He's got a big mouth. We all know that. The things that come out of his mouth are never ending. They may have a lot of evidence to use against him. Speaking to Laura Ingraham on her Fox News show on Friday, attorney Bruce Castor said he will attempt to counter these videos by highlighting Democratic lawmakers' rhetoric in the Black Lives Matter protests over the summer. Will you then respond with Maxine Waters, a number of other Democrat officials not speaking out about the Antifa and other extremist rallies over the last summer? Ingraham asked Castor, according to Politico. I think you can count on that, Castor responded. If my eyes look a little red to the viewers, it's because I've been looking at a lot of videos. And I remember when Maxine Waters that was making the news, and she was saying, get in the face of Trump supporters. If you see people at that administration, get in their face, push back. Donald Trump's language, I watched the whole video. It actually is fairly similar. Now, he does say fight. It's a 60-minute speech. It's fairly similar. Castor added that he will specifically highlight the comments made by Democratic lawmakers during the BLM protests. Here's one thing to think about, though. Trump, you have to remember, big thing in law is always closeness in time, closeness in time. So, Maxine Waters made those statements, but as far as I know, it didn't immediately set off like a particular riot, right? Like the group that she was speaking to, I don't think they went off and started participating in the riots that occurred over the summer. Whereas with Donald Trump, okay, he makes the speech. I think the crowd walks about a mile down to the Capitol in maybe an hour or two, and I could be wrong on these details, but within a couple of hours, they're running into the Capitol. So that close in time argument doesn't help Donald Trump, but the far in time argument would help Maxine Waters in that sense. The demonstrations were mostly peaceful, but critics have pointed to some protests, specifically in Portland, that became violent. At the time, Trump misleadingly blamed violence in the city on the far left and Antifa. The riots and protests over the summer there were certainly many of them that were very, very violent, very violent. There's a lot of tapes of cities burning and courthouses being attacked and federal agents being assaulted by rioters in the streets, cheered on by Democrats throughout the country, Castor said, according to Politico. Many of them in Washington are using really the most inflammatory rhetoric possible to use, and certainly there would be no suggestion that they did anything to incite any of the actions, he added. But here, when you have the President of the United States give a speech and says you should peacefully make your thinking known to the people in Congress, he's all of a sudden a villain. You better be careful what you wish for, he asked. And again, the big problem here is the closeness in time. Trump gives the speech, and then the riot begins. The riots that occurred over the summer started spontaneously, but there was certainly Democratic language that appeared to sort of support it and or egg it on. Again, you got to talk about the distance in time, also the distance in proximity, right? Sending tweets, that's why it'll be interesting to see if they use Trump's tweets. Sending tweets out a couple of weeks before or while events are already taking place, which is probably what you saw from a lot of politicians over the summer. Again, there's physical distance, number one, and then number two, there's distance in time. Whereas Trump doesn't have the benefit of either of that, right? The crowd was physically close to him, and the riot occurred shortly thereafter. It's unclear which videos or remarks the Trump team will cite during the impeachment trial. Trump's legal team, consisting of Castor and attorney David Schoen, is expected to argue that the Constitution requires that a person actually hold office to be impeached, according to a brief released earlier this week. They will also argue that the former president was exercising his First Amendment right to question the results of the 2020 election. Trump advisor and spokesman Jason Miller previously confirmed to Insider the president will not testify in an unconstitutional proceeding. Look, when you're accused of something, a crime, it's generally not in your interest to testify no matter what. I'll just throw that out there. So 3 points that I want to make here. Number one, if you watch some of my prior videos, remember what I said about this impeachment. The results are predetermined, right? The Democrats have maybe 5 or 6 Democrats to vote, 5 or 6 Republicans that will vote in their favor. They have to get to 67. They're not going to get 17 Republicans to jump ship. It's not going to happen. So what are we going to see? Well, the Democrats are doing it because they're pushing the impeachment because they want to make a point, okay? They feel that Donald Trump needs to be held accountable for his actions, and they further, this is the more Machiavelli outlook, is they further want to damage him politically in case he runs for future office and or to deter and damage people that align with his movement. So I would say that's probably where the Democrats are coming from, and each individual lawmaker may fall somewhere else on the spectrum when it comes to their motivations here. As far as the Republicans, let's look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to look at this as political theater. Remember, the result is almost certainly predetermined. If it was close, if we were talking 5 this way or 5 that way, okay, we may see different approaches, maybe not. But here it's predetermined. So what are we mainly seeing? Political theater. This will be Donald Trump's chance to defend himself in whatever way he wants. And also, number 2, he wants to highlight things that Democrats may have said over the summer that were similar to what he said prior to the Capitol riot. From a legal perspective, I don't know how persuasive it is because they are not on impeachment trial. He is. So in that sense, but from a persuasion and trying to change the mind of the public or other individuals, it's probably a very good strategy because he's going to juxtapose, the language used by other lawmakers over the summer that was probably very similar to his with the language that he used and, kind of just point out what is going on here. My bottom line when it comes to the law is I think that you need to have some very, very direct language in order to incite a crowd. So, and remember, the First Amendment, political speech is extremely protected in the United States. Therefore, I don't think that the Democrats who were whatever they said over the summer, and I've heard most of what was said, maybe not everything, and whatever Donald Trump said, frankly, I believe it's all protected under the First Amendment. I truly do. Unless you're directly, you almost have to be like a general telling people where to go and what to do and exactly how to do it for it to be the type of speech that would not be protected by the First Amendment. And this is something that's existed in this country for literally hundreds of years through other times of unrest, even greater than what we're going through now. So I think the First Amendment argument is very compelling for Donald Trump. I don't necessarily buy the unconstitutional argument because from what I've looked at and read, and I'm not a scholar, the Constitution is more or less silent on this situation. And I would think that the Supreme Court would probably defer to the legislature in allowing them to impeach a person in public office for conduct that occurred while they were in office. As long as the conduct occurred while they were in office, then the impeachment is likely constitutional. I could very well see the Supreme Court sort of drawing a line there. However, I have not researched it that much. It will be interesting because here's the thing. With laws, with most laws, you have a statute of limitations. When does that statute of limitations end? Is there a statute of limitations on impeachment? And is the statute of limitations on impeachment when the official leaves office? Regardless, as I've said before, I think political violence on both sides is generally a bad thing, generally uncalled for. I understand that it can break out spontaneously here and there. Protesting is a good thing. Peacefully protesting is a good thing. And we've done in this country for a very, very long time. But when it turns into something else, it's bad, whether that's on the right or on the left. And I completely condemn, what was done on January 6th when the Capitol was stormed. So those are my thoughts on this. Watch this. Keep in mind, this is political theater, okay? But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating to see these two arguments sort of go up at each other because they're both parties here, the Republicans and Democrats, are using this to tell their story, right? They are trying to persuade. So thank you very much for tuning in to Joe Pometto, Joe the lawyer, not a constitutional scholar, but I am an attorney. I took constitutional law for a year. I hope you appreciate my opinion. I try to come at it as a straight shooter. If you like my content, like, subscribe, comment, and share, especially subscribe. Trying to get to 1,000. I'm getting there. You guys are pumping me up. Thank you very much.